The Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, we hit the swinging 70s thanks to E-Man, the Energy Man, and boy, is he in for a crisis. Plus, Steven takes a trip in time. We hit all the high points of pop culture. We don't borrow, we don't read, we don't rent, we don't lease. We take the souls, Rodrigo, and then we trend them in for valuable prizes with grit. Send your self-addressed stamped envelope to Major Spoilers, care of the Funny Farm, Chalfont. And don't forget sufficient postage, because neither rain nor sleet nor snow nor dark of night will keep the Major Spoilers podcast off the air. But I think scurvy might, or rickets.
Welcome to issue 1079 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you for downloading and checking us out this week. I have right here an email.
Are you making mailbag noises?
I am making mailbag noises because, listen, so email is a word that has been around for a long time. If you go and look at the etymology of the word, and you look in and see where it comes from, of electronic mail and everything. 1982 is when, who is this? What is this website? Entomology Online. Says 1982, email, short for electronic mail. 1977, see electronic plus mail. This led to the contemptuous application of snail mail in 1983 to the old system. I think we see the very first use of the word email this week. This week, ladies and gentlemen, as we take a look at E-Man from 1973. But we're going to get to that in just a moment. First, let's talk about some comic book reviews. I am very excited about a couple of comics that are coming out this week. One of them is the latest in the G.I. Joe line. We've seen Duke, and we've seen Cobra Commander, and I believe there's a Destro comic coming out. But the one that debuts this week from Image Comics and Skybound is Scarlet #1 from Kelly Thompson and Marco Ferrari.
Yep. I love Scarlet. Kelly Thompson writes. Marco Ferrari is the artist. You may remember him selling tires in... no, that's rude. I'm sorry. Anyway, Marco Ferrari does the art. Scarlet is the first woman I ever loved. This is true. Anyone born in 1970.
Not Daphne?
The first girl you notice. No, Daphne. I love Scooby. I love Shaggy, the other guys who drive the van. But Scarlet, first woman I ever loved. And it was the painting of her on the back of her card in 1982. And now 40, I don't know, let's say 2 years later, Scarlet #1 reinvents Scarlet for the new Energon universe, which I think is going to combine Scarlet or G.I. Joe and Transformers.
That was already announced. That was all part of the same thing.
What is the third thing? Is
the Void Rivals, whatever is going on in Void Rivals, which is not just Transformers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
My Little Pony, probably. all the Hasbros.
Hasbro owns a lot.
Timmy, Johnny,
stuff.
Joey, the Hasbros.
I think you're thinking of the Ramones. But in any case, I heard a sound as if thousands of punk rockers screamed out together and were suddenly silenced. Okay.
Steven going to entomology sites and be like, ants. I need you to find me information about where these words come from.
Amy, tell me about the ants. Anyway, okay, so Scarlet #1 picks up at a point before there is a G.I. Joe team per se, and it picks up off the coast of Monaco, and we see someone crawling out of the surf. They have basically done a deep sea dive, and they've come up, and all of a sudden they pull off the wetsuit, and it is Scarlet in a cocktail dress and a cute outfit and glasses, and she infiltrates a cocktail party, and she's on some sort of comm system with Control, the person who is running her particular mission, and she's telling them about the security, and she's trying to identify the location of potential hostages. And she's like, Intel says, no contact. Do not engage. She's like, yep. So she sees some people and she identifies some people, and she identifies her best friend and ex-roommate, Jinx, who, if you know G.I. Joe lore, you also know as a member of Clan Arashikage with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. So something is up. And as Control tells her, do not engage. You do not have permission to engage. She's like, uh-huh. And they're like, stand by. And she's like, sure. And as she's beating people up to save the hostages, she's like, permission to engage? They're like, negative. You have no authorization. She's like, uh-huh. So as she literally takes out all of the security people, she is being told repeatedly, do not engage, do not engage. And at the end of the fight, she's like, by the way, I have all 9 hostages. They're safe. I'm going to need exfiltration. And there's silence. And then you hear helicopter en route. I'm like, yes, yes. So she immediately gets fired because her commanding officer does not take well to this sort of thing. And honestly, it's one of the few times I've ever seen G.I. Joe treated as an actual military organization. I love Larry Hama, love him dearly, but G.I. Joe never felt like it had military hierarchy, mostly because the first sergeant was somehow in command of a bird colonel who later became a general, and the first sergeant was still considered to be the leader. But after being fired, she goes home to the house that she used to share with Jinx. And she says, Jinx is my best friend. She was like my sister. I think there is a read here. There is definitely a read here that Scarlett and Jinx were a couple, could have been a couple, that they love each other in a way that feels like maybe it's more than friends. You can also read it as just a very deep friendship, which I really appreciate, because I feel like sometimes stories just sort of gloss over the fact that not every kind of love is romantic. But sitting in her living room is Stalker. Now, if you know Stalker, Stalker's fun. And Stalker's like, so I heard you got fired. I got a job for you. And of course, she sets out on a new mission. And this one, I'm not going to tell you what happens because A, the things that happen are really, really cool. And B, it's definitely leading into something. It's leading into the upcoming Destro. I think it's picking up from events in Duke, but I haven't read. I
haven't read the Duke, so I don't know how the miniseries tie into one another. But you know, the G.I. Joe series is already going on, and it's just a continuation of what Larry Hama has done. So yeah, I don't know how any of this fits into anything.
I think that Hama's Real American Hero continuity is continuing as its own thing because that universe has been canceled no fewer than 3 times, but still keeps coming back. I think that when we get to the actual Energon universe G.I. Joe, I think it's going to be like separate and distinct. But I'd have to actually go back and read all 3 issues of Duke. But I do know that this issue gives me 3 things that I absolutely love. You get some really interesting fighty with some possible ninjas. You get some wonderful moments with one of the classic members of the G.I. Joe team, but she does not call him by his code name. She actually calls him by name. He calls her Shana, and she calls him Harlan. And I don't know if that's because they are not officially using the code names or if it's because Harlan's code name is Snowjob. But it also gives us, much as that appearance of Nemesis Enforcer did in that shocking issue of Cobra Commander that Steven clearly recognized and knew who it was, it gives us a last page reveal of somebody that I did not see coming. I should have seen it coming. I feel like it's one of those moments where not only is it the obvious character to show up, the character who should show up, it's also the last character I expected to show up. They managed to put together a story where there's only one possible resolution to this, and I did not see it coming. And that is fun. That is relatively rare for me as a comic reader. It's especially rare for me given that I bought G.I. Joe #1 off the stands, etc. So here's the deal with Scarlett. The art is really, really unique. I don't even know how to describe it because it feels like it's both really, really sharp, but also has kind of a chiaroscuro blurry thing going for it. And I can't stop looking at some of these scenes. There's a point where Scarlett is just driving home on her motorcycle, and it's this half-page shot of her angrily cursing out her old commanding officer and just riding home on a motorcycle. And it's so pretty. It's such a gorgeous shot. And this issue is just full of them. And that last page reveal of someone who I won't tell you who it is, but I will say that we see his shadow before the storm. And as you get to the end of the story, it's clear that they've opened like 5, 10, 15 different possible ways for this story to go. Is Jinx evil? Is there mind control? Is she undercover and nobody's telling her? Why is the government involved in this? How did the government get involved in this? And why are there different factions of the government? And more importantly, why is Stalker in her living room? And where is Snake Eyes? Where is Snake Eyes? I don't know where Snake Eyes is, but I'm definitely coming back. 3 slices of meatloaf for Scarlett #1. There are a couple of moments that I feel like, and of course, anytime you get into something that's a complete revamp of what you loved, you do have to take a moment and just go, okay, I'm fine with this. I'm not an inflexible old man yelling at a cloud. But I really did like this book. I like the art. I like the story. Still in love with Scarlett 45 years later. 3 slices of meatloaf. I would say this one's a definite pickup, especially if you have interest in the G.I. Joe unit as a concept.
All right, very good. That was out last week from Image Comics, probably still on the stands, and I would not be surprised if this goes into a second printing, probably. So there you go. Out this week from Image Comics is Rifters #1 from Brian Posehn and Joe Torman with art by Chris Johnson. I love me a good time travel story, especially when the premise or the solicitation says Time Cop meets Law and Order. I'm like, I'm down for this. So here's the thing. Rifters is going to be one of those buddy cop things where 2 guys have to go back and make sure that either the timeline is secure or that that the timeline doesn't get too screwed up. Because the premise is time travel is invented by a guy, and then the science community and the court system all says, hey, time travel is for science. No one else can have it but scientists. And so then people can go back in time and do all the things that they need to do to, see if Jesus was real or see, who really was on the grassy knoll, that kind of stuff. And then an evil scumbag becomes president. And he's like, nope, time travel is for anybody. And so then anybody has access to time travel, and we get to see some of the bad repercussions about that. Maybe some good, I don't know. Depends on your point of view on dinosaurs. And then here are the 2 guys who are tasked with going back in time and preventing bad things from happening. It's all well and good. I like the premise. I like the setup. It is Brian Posehn who does a lot of comedy. And so there is a lot of comedy in this book. My biggest problem is with this issue is not the art. It's not even the story or the writing. It's the fact that so much of the history of time travel is spent doing these giant half-page or full-page, well, actually it's 2 panels per page, so half-page jokes about, hey, let's go back in time and see who Jesus was. Oh, let's see what really happened in the closing days of Hitler's bunker. And, everything is played up as a big joke. And that goes on for how many pages is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of this. And then it's like after time travel is made public for anybody to do, now we got to do a 3/4 page joke on Pol Pot, and we got to have somebody going back and drawing a penis on Abraham Lincoln's forehead because he fell asleep right before the Gettysburg Address. And it's like, okay, I get it, but it's like the first half of the book is just hitting you over the head with how people have screwed up time or messed with time or actually used time the way they were intended. But it's all there for joke purposes. And I enjoy a good joke, but I think that a rule of 3 should apply. And they were using a rule of 16. And I think that that was just a little bit too much. And so that is going to knock this down a bit for me. I wanted to get into the real meat of the story because we don't even get to meet our two heroes until page, gosh, I don't know, because I'm looking at an electronic review copy that Image sent us. But it's more than halfway through the book before we meet our two protagonists, and they're being sent back to 1922 Chicago to stop a couple of dude bros from buying 100-year-old whiskey and bringing it to a party in the future, and then accidentally killing a boy. And so it's just like, or potentially killing a boy. And that only goes on for like maybe 5 or 6 pages. And it's the rest of the book, the rest of those 20 pages, 22 pages or 24 pages is just spent on gags. And I was just like, okay, I get it, but I just don't want any more of it. I want a story. And so I'm hoping that the rest of the book or the rest of the series gets better in that we focus on the stories. I'm fine with humor in the story, like the two dude bros that they're going after. We're taking pictures with Elvis dead on the toilet and posting them on their socials. I can handle that kind of humor showing up here and there, but I don't need more than half the issue of one and 2 panel per page jokes on it. So 3 slices of meatloaf out of 5. I have hopes for this. I like the art. I like the direction. I like the premise of the story. And I'm not saying that it needs to be more serious. I'm just saying that maybe put the jokes in sporadically and not inundating the audience all at once. So that's my thought on Rifters, out this week from Image Comics. Now we're going to jump ahead a couple of weeks because that's what Rodrigo does.
Yeah.
There's no containing this man. When the publishers say, "Hey, embargo on this story," Rodrigo is like, "I say nay." When the publishers are like, "Please don't review this until we have it cleared by our lawyers and accountants," and Rodrigo is like, "Ha, I mock you." And so now this week,
Rodrigo talk like that in your head.
I mean, doesn't he talk like that in everybody's head? Matthew,
No.
I'm very disappointed in you.
Yes.
Rodrigo, you are jumping ahead to July 3rd, Mad Cave Studios Soul Taker #1.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what this is all about.
Okay, so yes, Soul Taker, written by Tom Snigowski, I believe. Artist is Valeria Burso. This story is interesting. We are kind of following this older lady. She's kind of going out for a walk. She's got her hoodie on. She meets up with a friend and her cute dog. And then she gets on a bus and rides the bus, but it's like a city, like a intercity bus, right? Not like a public transportation, but like a Greyhound.
Yeah.
And she goes out and she gets to a weird locker and she opens the locker, and inside there is a little needle with some vials and another vial, and she puts one piece of her hair in it, and then she puts some of her blood in the vials, and then she puts it away, and then pulls out a giant suitcase full of money, or like a duffel bag full of money, and all the while she's kind of talking to us. We hear her like internal narration of it, and she's like, "Yeah, I've had this arrangement for years now, and it's nice, and it's like it's like $300,000 or something like that per thing, so she gets that like once a month. But today the mysterious people that have made this arrangement have decided to change the nature of the arrangement, so they're coming after her.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. So yes, not to give too much away, but there's something else going on with Amara or Amarantha. Um, she is, I mean, she's an old lady, but she is older than she seems and has more abilities that you might imagine from just looking at her. Um, it's an interesting, it's an interesting first issue because you mostly get a lot of glimpses, as always. Like I always just look through the stuff that's been sent to us and pick one out, usually most of the time, check the calendar to make sure that nobody else has taken it. And that's how I end up reading an issue. I don't read the solicitations. I don't even look at the writer and artist or anything like that. The company I do, because that's how we file them. Um, and so going in blind and reading it, I'm like, okay, well, this is what I think it do. But if you read the solicitation, it actually gives a lot of stuff away, some of which hasn't happened. This happens very often, actually. And I don't know if it's just because I end up reading comics like this, where part of the deal of the comic is this like slow burn into like what exactly is going on. But the solicitation wants a solicitation wants comic book stores to buy the comic. So it's like in the solicitation is like a lot more information. So do yourself a favor. I'm gonna give this one 3 slices of meatloaf. Writing's good, art is good. Don't read the solicitation. Just go pick it up because it's gonna spoil you.
Yeah, so here's the deal. Sometimes, and I don't know where the miscommunication happens, or if it's a miscommunication, or if it's totally because the things that we have, like if you read the solicitation for this on the notes section of the podcast or over at majorspoilers.com, that's the solicitation that we get from Mad Cave Studios. This is the solicitation that goes up on Amazon when the book goes live on Amazon. This is from July 3rd, so it's not up on Amazon yet. This is the solicitation that goes into the previews catalog. There are times where I will post a sneak peek or a first look or something that is sent to us from a publisher, and within like less than 24 hours, the creator of the comic is reaching out to me and going, can you take down, like that second paragraph, or can you use this instead because what they sent you tells you everything about the book and the series. And I don't want them to do that. Yeah. So I don't know how that happens, but you would be surprised how often it happens, Rodrigo, where I will get that email or phone call from people saying, hey, can you just take that down because we made a mistake on that and it reveals too much. And it's like, what's going on with the PR people?
It really feels like the only time when that doesn't happen is actually maybe with the big two, because everybody already knows who Batman is.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah.
But anytime there's a mystery or they're introducing new characters or something like this, where it's a new book and it is at its own pace, sort of showing you what's happening, like so many solicitations are so spoilery. And I believe that first off, the writer, like, unless this is a very self-published book, the writer probably doesn't write the solicitation. So again, the writer
actually
wants to,
Well, go ahead, because I have an alternative thought.
Okay, yeah. So the team, the creative team, wants you to experience the comic through the comic at the pace that they're setting.
Right.
But the publishing team, or the marketing team, wants to get these books into people's hands, and the way to do it has been like, hey, have you ever read a book about a vampire that sells real estate? Well, here's the thing. This is like vampire real estate agent meets Die Hard.
I wonder. So this is the other thing that I was thinking is, somebody comes to a small publisher, and I'm not saying, and again, we're all using this as a hypothetical, although Rodrigo has said don't read the solicitation for this particular book. But maybe these creators went, and this is their pitch. This is their, not their log line, but a little bit longer than the log line. This is our pitch for the series. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll sign you up and we'll release this. Here's the contracts and everything. And then they don't ask anybody for the solicitation information. And they're just like, oh yeah, we'll just use this pitch document. and use it to
Sure.
put it in for the first issue. I could see that happening, especially at a smaller publisher.
I could totally see that. I could see that happening at a big publisher.
Oh yeah, well yeah,
like
yeah.
you know, it's like you just get some wires crossed or whatever, and really that is the thing, right? I like this theory. I like your theory, Stephen, because a lot of the time you says like issue 1. Here's this like 2 paragraphs describing the entirety of the series,
Mm-hmm.
right? Super spoilery. Issue 2, like Jake finds an egg. Like that's the solicitation, right? So it's like very clearly like now like there was a fight and now they're like, oh yeah, well you're right, the solicitation is like, oh yeah, well I'm not giving anything away this time, or you know, now they're like, intern, write the solicitation for this, but don't make him too spoilery because the artist will get mad. And it's like, okay, Jake finds an egg.
On the flip side, there was a time, and sometimes they still do it, and it infuriates me, is where you will have a Marvel or a DC will send out the monthly solicitations, the same things that go into the preview catalog, and it's like Green Lantern number 47, and the only image that you have for the cover is a black box that says top secret, and then it'll tell you who the creators are, but then when it comes to what's going on in this issue, you know, top secret, we can't tell you, and you'll just have to buy the issue and find out. And there'll be like 30 of them in a month. And I'm just like, how, if I were buying comics on a regular basis and having to use the previews catalog instead of using Comixology or another digital service, I don't think I could buy comics like I used to, knowing that it's like, what am I getting? I have no idea what this is. How is this supposed to sell me on picking up a comic book?
Well, and I think that's an important part of the equation, right? I mean, Matthew used to work at a comic book store, right? Like you are the guys who are reading these, and so that you can put them on the stands.
Yeah.
Now imagine the poor guys who have to try and
order
decide, what are we going to order? Yeah, and that Marvel has been doing that for the better part of 15 years.
They've been doing it for as long as Major Spoilers has been around.
Oh yeah, there was a point right after House of Ma. Where they were relaunching a bunch of books, and it was like 6 solicits in a row. We're all just like, top secret. We can't even show you a single image from this comic book. And I'm like, well, okay, how are we supposed to decide what to order on those? And over-ordered. Everybody did. And it turned out it was like, oh yeah, whatever, fine. It's a whole thing. And it turned out to be Decimation, which was fine, but it also wasn't the deal that you could buy 50 copies of something sight unseen and have it work. So it's just,
yeah.
Oh, I'm still scarred by Decimation.
Well, the nice thing about publishers that are so secretive is that there always end up being leaks anyway. It's like they're like, do not show this issue, this issue, this issue, and then like some other issue that's like a tie-in. That's not supposed to, you know, that's going to come out like 2 months from now, right? This is a solicitation. Like it comes out and it's like, it's Artie and Leech and they both have Psylocke's powers.
Yeah.
And they're like, no,
I think they did that in Blood Hunt.
I
think they did that with Blood Hunt, the Blood Hunt event that's currently going on. It's like, we can't tell you very much about what's going on in Blood Hunt #1 because this, and this, you know, the vampires are taking over and night is permanent, and then you're like, oh, okay, this seems really interesting, and then you scroll down just a little bit further and it's like Blood Hunt issue #2, the death of Captain America has rocked the world, and it's like, what? So we get both extremes where it's like super tight-lipped and you have no idea what you're getting into, and then others that are just like, nope, here's everything, and then you get somewhere in the middle. So it's a big, broad spectrum of solicitations. But I know what some people are asking. Stephen, how come you guys are not reviewing as many DC books? Hey, listen, comic books cost a lot of money. $3.99, $4.99 for the comics this week. And DC doesn't send us review copies like they used to. So we just can't get to those. And of course, the day that we record is the day that DC releases those issues. So we can't even get them to record for the show for you. So yeah, if you want us to review more DC stuff, reach out to DC Official and say, hey, why don't you get Major Spoilers to review more comics? And maybe we will read more DC comics in the future. But Marvel sends us stuff, Image, Top Cow, Skybound, Mad Cave Studios, Boom Studios, Dynamite Entertainment, Ablaze, AWA. I'm trying to just run down all the list of all the Zenoscope sends us stuff. So yeah.
I mean, Mad Cave, obviously.
Yeah, Mad Cave, Oni Press. Yeah, they're all these are all great publishers. We love working with them. In fact, we may have some exclusive stuff from Dark Horse Comics coming up later this week. So you're going to have to check out the majorspoilers.com website to find out more. Running Major Spoilers isn't free, and if you've enjoyed everything that you get from Major Spoilers, then maybe you might want to give a little value for value by heading over to patreon.com/majorspoilers and signing up for our silver level membership. A mere $5 a month allows us to keep this show going and all the shows in the Major Spoilers Podcast Network. This week, we're giving a big shout out to Justin Chrysler, who just upped their pledge this week and became an associate producer, not a silver level patron, an associate producer level patron. Thank you so much, Justin. That is awesome. And of course, we're waiting to give anyone who signs up or ups their pledge a shout out on the show. All you need to do again is join us at patreon.com/majorspoilers. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, when you become that silver level patron, you get up to 4 bonus episodes each month that you're not going to find anywhere else. At the gold level, the next step up, $10 a month, you get up to 8 bonus episodes a month. You know how much, Matthew?
Yeah.
I went to the store the other day and I had to buy a drink because my throat was parched and we're supposed to stay hydrated. And I went to buy one of those bottled drinks. Maybe it was a canned drink, but it had a big M on the maybe it was a can in a bottle. I think that's what it was. And it was like $5. You could support Major Spoilers for a whole month for the same amount of money that this can of bubbly drink cost me.
Mm-hmm. This can of M's.
Yeah, whatever the M's are. I don't know what it is. It's fruity and made me stay up all night. Let me just say that. So here's the thing. Here's the thing.
M stands for methamphetamine.
Is that what it is? Man, yes. Meth straight from the can. Who knew that they did that these days? Listen, you ladies and gentlemen, you can keep me from my meth addiction by going out and and supporting us at $5 a month so that we can continue to do this show for you. And listen, when you sign up at the silver level and higher, so silver, gold, associate producer, Daddy Warbucks level, you get access to the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show. And this week, I think we had a fascinating conversation about ChatGPT, how it identifies itself. I think we had a fascinating conversation on Chris Pine and the new Pool Man movie, and why Jim Rockford is one of the greatest people and the kindest people in the entire world. And Matthew will always be wrong for all the end of days. What am I talking about? You're going to have to find out by becoming a patron today at patreon.com/majorspoilers.
I sure am glad I didn't upset him with that.
You didn't upset me. Although I do follow James Garner's. I do follow James Garner's daughter on I don't know if it's Twitter or Instagram, but she is really nice and she shares a lot of really great behind the scenes stuff of her and her dad on both movies and Rockford Files and a bunch of other like race car driver stuff. So it's pretty cool.
I follow Kelly Carlin. Rodrigo, whose hero's daughter do you follow online?
Unfortunately, a lot of my heroes haven't died yet.
What? He follows his sister. That's the correct answer.
That is adorable.
Well, I mean, I do follow Zelda Williams, but I don't think she's posted anything recently.
She hasn't, not in a long time. She used to be on my list too. I don't know if she does post.
Yeah, like I just follow my current heroes, like I mean, of course I've forgotten her name. What's the name?
Major
of the
Spoilers.
Matilda. Yeah,
Cobra.
Steven Schleicher, Matthew Peterson,
Andy Bryan, or TTRP. What is
TRPG Brian?
Yeah, TTRPG.
So
Brian.
I think his handle is
or
still
Immortal.
technically D&D Brian, but it's like TTRPG Brian because really he has expanded his brain.
D&D Brian.
Yes.
But the D&D stands for Death and Destruction.
I have a question for you guys because I was thinking about this, especially in light of our Major Spoilers podcast pre-show.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Do you think GLaDOS has achieved the same level of notoriety that the Terminator, HAL 9000, Yul Brynner from Westworld, Colossus, the Forbin Project? Do you think that GLaDOS has achieved that same level of pop culture awareness?
So, like that list is actually very telling. Like,
I know, right? Because it's all old.
It's not just that. It's that the list that you just gave me is a list of cool, famous robots, and in that case, absolutely.
Or AIs, yeah, sure, robots.
Yeah,
GLaDOS is
absolutely.
If
you were
so
like,
GLaDOS
you know,
is in
if
that
you-
same. You would put
who else is
GLaDOS
on
in that same
list?
category.
If, like, is Kit on that list?
I mean, I'm just maybe, probably.
Yeah. So if the list is like cool AI from various media, absolutely, I think GLaDOS is that popular. If you were to like, do people on the street, like right now, you can jump out at somebody in the street and be like, "Do you know who Captain Marvel is?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, it's that blonde lady," right? Like they know something about Captain Marvel,
Right.
right? But if you're like, "Do you know who GLaDOS is?" They might not. So,
But I think that more people know the memes about GLaDOS and the cake being a lie
sure.
than GLaDOS herself. I feel like up until the point where you said Colossus, the Forbin project.
I'm just thinking of AIs that
answer-
are out to kill people, right? So like
the answer
Skynet,
was no.
Skynet and Terminator,
Hard not,
Colossus, the Forbin project,
Definitely not
GLaDOS.
Skynet. Definitely more than Colossus, the Forbin project.
Oh
would
yeah,
say
I
a little
doubt
less
many.
than Kit, a little more than Hardak.
What about like the
Um,
Westworld? What about Westworld AI robots gone amok?
Definitely less than Westworld as an entity, because Westworld not so long ago had a big new
Yeah.
awesome show that was
Yeah,
the hot new thing, and since it was on HBO, it was the hot new thing with nudity.
yeah.
And for some reason, people love the hot new thing with nudity. It's why they watched 8 seasons of Game of Thrones and only about a season and a half of it made any sense. But I feel like what we really need to put GLaDOS into that list and have her be solidly there is when somebody gets around to, when they've gotten all the way through, Fallout, and they've gone through and done the other games. I don't know. What are the other games that people like? Cyberpunk 2099, marked down from 2150. If we get like a movie adaptation where you have like Kathleen Turner or like Helen Mirren voicing
like an Annette
GLaDOS.
Bening.
Yeah, like an Annette Bening would be perfect. Actually, honestly, the voice actor who voices GLaDOS would be perfect.
Yeah, she's great.
She does a great job.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they can get her in a movie, I think that's the point where her time will have come.
You know, she's really made it when Epic Rap Battles of History does like GLaDOS versus HAL 9000, two things that didn't exist in history, but that's basically all they do now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And by now, I mean in the last 10 years, because I don't think I've seen a new one of those in a while.
So for
I don't know if they've done
people
one.
that are up on their pop culture, GLaDOS, everybody knows her.
For the
But if I went out to Barnes and Noble and I just walked up to a person and said, "Excuse me, sir, do you know who GLaDOS is?" And then they drop their book and run away. They probably
because
don't
they
know.
want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And in fact, there have been no new Portal games.
Right.
So
Right.
GLaDOS is also like probably 10 years ago? People would have been
I
like,
think 2017 was the last Portal something.
yeah. So,
Something,
like,
something.
Jonathan Colton did the
Yeah, the
music.
cake is a lie. Yeah. Mhm.
So, like people knew it from there and people knew it from the game and stuff, but there hasn't been any new Portal thing. So we're just like quietly keeping the candles lit here. If there's ever going to be anything else, we're just maintaining the idea of the characters. One candle burns orange and the other one burns blue.
Yeah.
Goodbye, GLaDOS.
I asked, Portal with RTX. I don't know what that is. Released December 8th, 2022.
Oh, maybe they're going to make
I don't think that's a game.
virtual
I think that's
reality.
a shower cleaner.
Oh, it's just
RTX,
Portal.
like
It's Portal with
bubbles.
real-time ray tracing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
So
don't
it's
know
just
what that
a fancy updated version of the game. No, I asked that because I was listening to the Jonathan Colton song the other day in the car, and my youngest son was in the car with me. And I was like, "Have you ever played the Portal game?" Because he does like to play games. He's like, "No, but I'm familiar with it. It's the one with the portal gun." I'm like, "Yeah, obviously, it's called Portal." And but I said, "Do you know who GLaDOS is?" He's like, "No, not really." I was like,
Yeah.
Okay. So I have failed as a father. So there you go. That's what you need
But
to take
do you
away
ever
this week.
wonder if the boy just no-sells the things you ask?
No. He
Portal-
would know, because if it's like with the Spider-Man games that he has gone through 3 times on, he's more than happy to share that stuff, and we can talk about stuff that he's knowledgeable on. But if I'm like, "Hey, Did you guys see that there is a new Roblox thing coming up or a new Fortnite thing? And both of the boys are like, oh, yeah, we've seen that. Or, I go in and, he'll be watching Young Sheldon. Again, go listen to the pre-show, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll have conversations about that stuff. So, no, he's not no-selling. He's literally has not played Portal.
I very subtly try to get my nephews into the media that I like because the games that they like are alien to me. Like my nephew, like literally my youngest nephew told me that he doesn't remember when he started playing Minecraft. He was so young that he doesn't remember the first time he played Minecraft. He just remembers always having played Minecraft.
Yeah.
And I am garbage at Minecraft.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you wanna play Portal 2?
But this is the thing too. Portal is almost pushing 20 years old.
It's almost 20 years old. It'll be 20 years old
But
next year. Or no, I'm sorry, October.
Can you talk about television programs of 2007?
Sure, The Simpsons.
And say, hey. Oh, don't even.
Well, yeah, always The Simpsons.
Do not. Do you remember?
Who we're not going to talk a whole lot about is E-Man, character from 1973, Charlton Comic Company.
We're just preempting the whole thing and talking about
we're just preempting trying to have this conversation.
The Sarah Silverman program, I love that. Glee.
Here's the thing. E-Man is a comic book character. What they really wanted to write is a Plastic Man comic book, but they weren't allowed to. And so they created E-Man, an electronic man born in an exploding nova star, and he came to Earth, and he has all the powers of electrons. And so he can be...
all the powers of a king and all the powers of Superman.
Of Superman, yes.
Yeah. And he's Plastic Man, essentially. He can become anything that he wants. And he has wacky, zany adventures with giant brains, a pair of twins that want to destroy the world. He goes and has horror adventures and other things. He takes on big oil. He has environmental messages. That's the other thing. This is definitely a 1973 comic, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
Like everything in this comic is just screams 70s. Yes, hit you upside the head. This is a 70s comic book.
Love it.
Do you?
I do. The thing about E-Man that, again, and we have a whole podcast about this. E-Man cannot be enjoyed without taking into account its time frame.
Yeah.
The fact that the primary female character, Nova Kane, that's not her real name, by the way. That's her stage name. She's working as an exotic dancer to pay her way through college.
Yeah.
The fact that Nova is allowed to have sexuality in a comic in 1973, that is a big deal.
You mean during the sexual revolution, a character is allowed to be sexual?
This was
comics in 1973.
This is also, I mean, Charlton Comics is basically an indie comic at this point.
Charlton Comics was under the Comics Code Authority, just like everybody else. Charlton was actually a major publisher.
But she's also not. She's also, I mean, she is somebody that enjoys being a person in the world. But at no point is she engaging in sexual acts. I mean, she's a nude dancer, and they talk about that. And certainly the clothing of the 70s is reflected, especially early 70s, hippie movement type stuff. Flower power type stuff is certainly reflected in her clothing, but I wouldn't say that this is a sexy comic.
Oh, it absolutely is. All of the stuff that they have, the sequences of her changing, the sequences of her dancing, the fact that you can see her belly button and a lot of underboob. This is a sexy comic, and for 1973, this is an ungodly sexy comic.
Yeah, this is a very sexy comic. When I was
I didn't
when I was
see
a
it
kid,
that way.
There is a panel of her right after the part where she does blackface.
Yeah.
There's
blackface in this book. Yeah, and she's getting scrubbed down by
she's getting scrubbed down by like 3 attendants,
Egyptian ladies. Yeah,
and she's like completely reclined, and the water's like obscuring it. Whereas that is very what I want to say, like suggestive,
Risque, suggestive. Yeah.
Yeah.
like
For comics of 1973, that is highly charged
yeah,
erotica.
like to the like if that issue, if that was put on panel today, like they would just show everything if
Yeah.
they wanted
Mhm.
to be like shocking or whatever. But it's like this is right, is like this is trying to be sexy and suggestive as opposed to like shocking or
Right.
like erotic necessarily.
Right.
We're supposed to. I think that the takeaway from Nova's character in these 10 issues is that she is like one of those free spirit
Yeah.
post hippie girls.
Yeah.
And you know, if this had come out in '82 as part of the black and white boom of the '80s, as opposed to the alt comics boom of the '70s, there would have been nudity. And He-Man does come back in the '80s with nudity, and
Mhm.
you know, into the '90s they come back and it goes nuts. But Nova and her relationship with Alec is also weirdly sexual, but it's sexual in like a
Like a thin
stranger in a
man.
strange land kind of way.
I was going to say more like a thin man. Stranger in the Strange Land, I wouldn't go because that is super misogynistic and everything.
Okay, how about Starman? The Jeff Bridges
Maybe
Starman.
Yeah, because I mean that's
the guy
yes.
shows up.
Yes.
And they're having sex, and you know they're having sex. Alec and Nova are having a lot of sex.
Oh, I'm
And
sure they are.
At a certain point in the story, it becomes I think it's issue 7 where the thing happens, where you're like, okay, the thing happens, and now it's not just like a normal Earth girl and her crazy energy boyfriend. It's now two crazy energy people, and they're probably in a light bulb. How many people does it take to screw in a light bulb? Two, as long as it's Alec and Nova. I mean,
she gets blowed up real good and comes back as a superhero. At which point I was like, hey, wait a minute. Nova's costume is almost exactly the same as Adam Eve's costume from Invincible. And I can't wonder if there was an inspiration taken from E-Man for Adam Eve's costume.
It's also like I want to say it looks a lot like one of the Legionnaires' costumes.
Oh, sure.
Well.
I mean, it's fairly generic, but it looks just the color, the placement of the belt buckle, the logo, and everything is just like, oh no, this is very much an Adam Eve costume.
The very nebulously explained powers.
Yes, exactly.
Where she has the power to be energy and or not.
I think the thing that annoyed me more than anything, so that's why I was probably more annoyed at the other stuff that was going on, and really was just like, yes, they're making allusions to these two are having a sexual relationship, etc. Was so much science is so wrong in this thing, and it was super annoying. It's like this guy kind of like Starman, right? Where he comes to Earth and he doesn't know anything, but suddenly he knows all about philosophy and laws and all this stuff, and it's like, no, you're a blank slate, dude. And also he traveled to many worlds and never met any living life until he comes to Earth, and now he's fascinated with Earth, and yet he suddenly understands everything about philosophy and right and wrong. And I was just like, okay, this is definitely a 70s comic where you just have to just wave your hand and go along with the adventure. This is not supposed to be a serious comic. This is supposed to be a comedy comic.
Right, and that's where the RAH parallels come in. You know, we don't mention the name, but it rhymes with Blanger and a Blange Bland, because there's very much a lot of that in here. There's a little bit of like that Jonathan Livingston Seagull kind of thing of there's a universal constants, man, and we're all tied into like one big happy kind of thing, man, and only bad people don't listen to the universe around them, man. But
oh no, that's what there's a lot of that in here, man.
There is, and I love this book. It really does feel like a book that's ahead of its time in a way that is not futuristic necessarily, and it's not really very far ahead of its time. It's about 1978 ahead of its time. So like 4.5 years by the time the book is over, it's ahead of its time. But if you go back and read Marvel and DC's output as they build up to, 1980, you're building up to these moments where you get the Contest of Champions, you get, the Crisis on Infinite Earths. This book presages a lot of that, and it does one important thing that I think all comics in the coming years are going to take up. Alec has two things going for him. One, his secret identity is only a secret identity when it matters, and the rest of the time it doesn't.
Oh yeah, like the
And
whole issue
two,
where it's like New York is suffering from huge blackouts. Come, Alec, and power up our generators. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And there's also the question of what are his powers? Whatever is fun
Whatever
in the
they
story.
want. Yeah.
Whatever is fun in the story. And we watched almost 7.5 seasons of The Flash before we were forced to tap out, where it was literally, what are his powers? Whatever makes sense in the story.
I think I only watched like 4 seasons of The Flash, and the rest I was just like, I'll just make something up and complain about it. Surely they did something stupid this week.
You watched about 4 seasons of The Flash, and then you just started doing, it's fine. You tapped out of the Legion of Superheroes in 78. As soon as Dream Girl showed up.
Yeah, as soon as Dream Girl showed up, it's like,
It's all 10 Gina impressions.
Let's wait until the real Legion shows up in Legion and Legionnaires. Yeah.
If you call the reboot Legion the real Legion one more time. So, anyway, Alectron, which, by the way, is
Nova
a fun pun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. That I think is part of what you're looking at, because when you look at this creative team, Nick Cutie, I always pronounce it like that. I don't know if that's actually how it's pronounced, but it just looks like Nicola. Nicola Cutie is a smart writer.
Yeah.
But not like a show-off smart writer. So it feels like a smart person.
He's no Neil Gaiman.
Well, and that's the thing. He's a smart person, but he's doing stories about people who aren't necessarily smart. Like Nova is streetwise, and Alec is wise.
What is she studying for, Rodrigo? She's studying for a doctor. Is she trying to be a doctor? What is she studying for? I know they mentioned it at least once or twice.
She is studying geology.
Oh, geology. That's right.
Yeah,
that's why she drives a Jeep.
A geologist.
Which, the weirdness of calling out a Jeep multiple times in multiple issues. I wonder if they were getting any kind of underwriting or something from Jeep, just because it's like, it's just like, oh yes, I'm a geologist. That's why I drive a Jeep. Let's make sure my Jeep doesn't get crashed. The Jeep gets crashed, by the way. Issue 2.
What that probably is what my assumption of seeing the Jeep a few times was, this is a signal that I am not getting. Right.
The Jeep is
the fact that Nova owns
thing.
It's some sort of cultural thing. Like they're saying is like, oh, look at this girl with her big old Jeep. That means she's a whatever. It's like recently. I didn't realize. I think I told you guys. I didn't realize that I had never seen Pretty in Pink. I had only seen 16 Candles. So I watched Pretty in Pink, and I was like, there's like rich kids and poor kids, and I cannot tell the difference between them. Like,
well, because they're Illinois poor.
They're
kids,
wearing blazers.
Yeah.
Like everybody's wearing a blazer, and like a different like. It's not even like, oh, these guys wear like gray blazers. Like, no, everybody's wearing like pastel blue or pink or white blazers. They're wearing
but
cool
the rich
hats.
kids can tell the difference between.
They can tell the difference between
their bellies have stars.
They can see it, but it's like, as an anthropologist, I'm like, which blazer is the rich kid's blazer?
Yeah,
right. And
I guess I just found it weird that they specifically call out Jeep in the first issue. It gets destroyed. Second issue, she's got another Jeep that I think gets destroyed, and then they go on another by issue. Maybe it's 3. I think it's the one where maybe that was issue 2. But anyway, she's like, this is like my third Jeep. We can't destroy this one. I'm like, the Jeep again. And it's just like, I could certainly see it calling out in one issue, but my goodness.
1973 product placement isn't really a thing yet.
That's why it's weird.
And it's I think what it honestly is Charlton Comics by 73 was not what's the word I'm looking for?
Is Blue Beetle still at Charlton by 73?
Charlton owns Blue Beetle, Captain Atom, Night Owl. Yeah, owns all of those characters.
Owns all the Watchmen.
Right, but stop it. Now Charlton owns all those characters. They license them to DC, and then I think in 83 or 84, DC buys them.
Okay, I didn't know if this was the time.
Reputedly, they bought them as a gift for Dick Giordano, the new editor-in-chief.
Okay.
Who actually started but yeah, at this point, Blue Beetle is in Charlton's stable for a few more years. He's not really doing anything throughout the 70s. But yeah, Ted Cord and Dan Garrett both
Are over
exist
there.
at this point
Okay.
in time.
Yeah, I was just, I don't know. The art kind of goes a little wacky a lot of times. It's not consistent. I had an issue with some of the art, especially in the faces. The faces get really rubbery,
wacky.
and
You
I
had
know
that
that
same
there was like,
complaint with this artist when he was drawing the Legion, Joe Staton.
oh yeah. There you go.
Of very
I just,
rubbery heads.
yeah, I'm just not a fan. I'm just not a fan of that look. And if I was reading correctly, there was like a big delay between issues. Was it issues 2 and 3? And then they were like, oh, we're running out of money, but we'll go ahead and finish these next couple of issues and then call it quits with issue 10. And so maybe there was some rush job to get things done. But yeah, Joe Stanton with rubber heads. Yeah, that's fine. So here's I don't know. If you guys, Rodrigo, do you have anything else you want to say on E-Man?
I guess generally I felt that if they had done one version of the Adventures of E-Man and Nova and stuck with that and just did more iterations of that as opposed to like wildly changing like the premise and the tone of it, I think it would have been a lot stronger. That's kind of what I was left with.
Yeah, it does kind of jump around a little bit. I appreciate the humor that's in it. I appreciate the terrible puns. I appreciate, all of the characters that are introduced, from the brain in a jar, which you sounds just like the big brains from Futurama. The Wonder Twins, or the Destruction Twins, whatever they are called. Juno and I forget what Charles. The other. Yeah, I love those. I love those characters. I love the detective guy that shows up. I think that there's some really great characters here. But you're right, Rodrigo. It does jump around to where you get 2 issues of a brain trying to take over the world and being very bureaucratic about it, and then it turns into something completely different. And I think that was somewhat annoying too. But I enjoyed the humor. For a funny book, I think that this is a funny book. If you're looking for an alternative to Plastic Man, I think E-Man is a great character to look at. I just would probably pass on this series, on the first volume, and it is collected, so you guys can go and pick it up.
Yep.
E-Man. Yeah, and the Masters. In fact, they actually call him out as He-Man at one point in one of the.
Well, He-Man is a phrase. This is 10 years before He-Man exists.
No, but I just find it funny. Just like email appears
like email.
in one of the sections. It's like, I get it, because they're talking about E-Man, email. That makes sense. Little did they know that they're coining a term that would, become a big deal in about 4 or 5 years, or 10 years, I guess, after this. There was, there's issues of blackface. Like there's this time travel story where they go back in time to Egypt, but Egypt is, this much bigger society, and they keep their children's in glass cages because there's some mysterious illness going around. Turns out it's fleas, which also doesn't sit well considering how, they talk about maybe the curse of 1,000 camels, fleas of 1,000 camels, et cetera. But then they do blackface, which is just like, okay. But again, in the context of the time period, I think it's probably okay.
I mean, knowing that it's there, like slate up front, it was wrong then and it's wrong now.
Exactly.
But...
Yep. Matthew, final thoughts?
The thing about Charlton that you have to remember is that Charlton Comics existed because it was too expensive for them to stop using their printing presses that they used to actually print things that made them money. So like they were printing songbook magazines, and they were printing, cereal boxes. They were printing any number of things that were profitable. But in order to keep the presses from breaking down, they had to run comics. And that's why Charlton Comics exists. And that's why, and I'm going to say this with love and affection, the same way I would say this to my child when I say, your pancreas is broken, go to bed. Charlton Comics are not good from a technical standpoint, from a printing standpoint, from a quality of paper and resources standpoint. But there are a couple of eras of Charlton that you definitely, as anybody who wants to know things about what comics used to be, you definitely want to look at E-Man and the mid-70s stuff, because this is a book put together by a group called the CPL Gang. So Nick Cudi was the editor-in-chief, but the rest of the people were Roger Stern, Bob Layton, John Byrne, Roger Slifer, Mike Zeck, a little bit of Dave Cockrum. This is basically one of those places where all of the people who in the 80s would be the top tier guys just wrote whatever they wanted because they had limited editing and the comic books were going to get printed one way or the other. I feel like E-Man is one of the jewels in a compost heap of Bronze Age comics.
Okay.
Seriously.
No,
Bronze Age comics
I can,
are like,
if you're talking, Charlton Comics, this is a jewel. Sure, I can see that. Was Al Cap had anything to do with Charlton Comics?
no, but that whole Little Abner rip was freaking hilarious. I think
thought it was
Al
funny.
Cap died around that time. If I'm
Oh,
not
he died in
mistaken.
77. Yeah. Oh, no, that's Little
77,
Abner
okay.
is when the series ended. He died in 79.
79. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Little Abner stuff was just people going, hey, here's a really cool comic that you may not know about
Yeah.
because it doesn't air in everybody's book. But I will tell you this. For me, and weirdos like me, this is a rush right out in a buying frenzy book because it is just a little snail mail from, the Ford era. This is the point where you're like, what in the world is going on? What is wrong with it? And you think, you know what else came out about this time? The Rocky Horror Picture Show. There's a lot of crazy stuff that just shows up. Dirty Harry, Crazy Larry, whatever that is. I don't know. Bunch of 70s movies. This is like the comic book equivalent of The Conversation. Or this is like
No,
the comic book equivalent of like
this is the
somebody
comic
who's
book
going
equivalent
to
of
become a
UHF.
genius doing
Hair.
that.
This is a comic book equivalent of UHF.
How dare you?
I mean,
See,
what does
everybody's got
Weird Al
one.
do? Weird Al made fun of all of the movies and TV shows. What does this comic do? It's making fun of all of the things that are going on
No.
in the 70s.
You're just trying to hurt me because I
No, I would.
Tomorrow.
No, if I wanted to hurt you, I could find a million
I
other
would
ways. To do
never.
that. Never.
That's just
Rodrigo,
hurtful.
do you know? I'm curious. Do you know who Little Abner is?
No. I feel like I
Okay.
did at some point, but I've forgotten.
Okay. All right.
Have you ever heard of Sadie Hawkins?
Sadie Hawkins?
Like
Yeah.
a Sadie Hawkins dance?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
All right. So that comes from Little Abner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Just curious because if you're somebody that is not up on references or things that are going on in the 70s, there may be a lot more that you're lost on.
I think that Little Abner is a reference from the mid 50s.
Well, true,
mean-
but I mean,
Yeah.
In that time
like,
period, I think people still knew. I knew Little Abner in the 70s because he was still running in newspapers.
Nowadays, I'm watching a lot of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and
Oh,
they,
yeah.
because it's like right in the early 90s, they're making references to stuff from the like late 70s and early 80s that people would get at the time, and I'm like, I have no idea what that is.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
even
That's why
then,
we're here. Just hit us
Yeah.
up. It'll be
Yep.
fine.
All right, everybody, that's where we're going to wrap it up this week. Thank you so much for downloading and checking us out. Next week on the show, Smikey, there you go. There's our, because Smikey demanded it, E-Man, the early years. It is collected. E-Man came out in, like Matthew alluded to earlier, 3 other runs in the 80s and then the 90s from different publishers. Charlton owned the rights to E-Man for years, and then finally they gave it back to the creator so they could go and do it other places. And take it there. Next week, we're going to return to the world of Dark Ride because Matthew said that we wanted to do it. That's what we can look forward to next week. And until then, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/major spoilers. And remember, we know that you love comics. We do too. And we will talk with you soon.
Fat the X-ray vision of a Superman. I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. But when I think about a better way, if I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya what a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm stark raving rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the hard cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast, being shot up in a fun, be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.